Welcome back to Solvable Mysteries Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at the disturbing killing of a British man named Alan Wood. Before we get going, I would like to thank everyone who left case suggestions in the comment section of my YouTube uploads for the last couple of uploads. I want to remind you guys that those suggestions are the lifeline of this podcast, even though it may seem that I am not able to ever get to your particular suggestion. I just want to make this clear that all of these suggestions are kept in a Excel file, and I keep that spreadsheet, for me to come back later on. I will go back to that list and I will find some cases. Alan Wood, the case that we're going to be talking about today, has not been suggested by anyone in the comment section. I ran into this particular case on Reddit. I was searching for a case with particular features. I wanted to cover a case that had a lot of good visual assets, a lot of clues. Let's put it this way, a lot of clues, but the case itself is unsolved. It's a big mystery that we have a lot of things that we could look at and analyze. Alan Wood's case is perfect. I've seen some suggestions for cases such as Elizabeth Barraza. That case is very deep and it would require me at least 3 to 4 days to prepare for that case. I only had a couple of days to make this episode. Hopefully this is gonna come out on Wednesday on the regular time. Now, I will get to cases like Elizabeth Barraza in the future, but just because of time constraint, I had to revert to doing this case, but I believe this case will surprise you guys, and join me as we delve deeper and analyze what is happening here. On Saturday, 24th of October 2009, Alan Wood, a 50-year-old British man, was found brutally murdered in his home. His house is located in a small village called Lound in the Lincolnshire County in the United Kingdom. Law enforcement emphasizes that Lound is approximately 16 miles north of Peterborough, which is the most populous city in the surrounding area, and is also home to many migrant workers from Eastern Europe. Following Alan's death, a large team of detectives was assembled by Lincolnshire police, and a murder investigation was launched. Alan Wood was last seen leaving his favorite pub, the Willoughby Arms, at Little Bytham. He left the pub and he was heading back home on 21st of October 2009. This was a Wednesday, and this was 3 days before his dead body was discovered in his home. Soon after the 21st of October, Alan's friends and colleagues were starting to feel concerned about his well-being because he had not turned up for his work. No one seemed to have heard from him in the last few days. So on the 24th of October, which was a Saturday, his body was found when a co-worker of Alan's visited his rented manor house in Lound and noticed that the front and back doors were wide open. The co-worker called the landlord. Apparently, the co-worker and everyone in the general proximity knew the landlord, and the co-worker felt as if the landlord was probably the best person to call at this point. And once the landlord arrived, they both went inside of that house and they found Alan's corpse. He was lying face down in a pool of blood. Alan's hands have been bound with duct tape, and he had been repeatedly stabbed in the eye. Alan's throat was then cut. This was the final injury that led to his death. It is believed that the most disturbing element of this attack came after Alan was already killed, because a deep wound to the back of his neck was found. This was a suggestion that an attempted decapitation was performed, but it wasn't fully performed. We'll get into the details why someone was trying to also decapitate Alan once he was already killed. Detectives believe these wounds were inflicted to torture Alan. Possibly to give up his bank card PIN numbers, which he most likely did because his bank cards were stolen and used in multiple ATMs in the surrounding towns around Lound. Lincolnshire Police and their colleagues from East Midlands Special Operations Unit are appealing for your assistance in identifying the person responsible, as beyond a possible financial motive, it is still not known why the most disturbing crime in Lincolnshire's recent history was committed, and why exactly Alan Wood was the victim here. Lound is in the county of Lincolnshire. Now, Lincolnshire is just north of London, and Lound is situated about 2 miles southwest from the town of Bourne, a town with 17,000 residents. Also, Lound is approximately 16 miles north of Peterborough, a city with 180,000 residents. It's the biggest city in the surrounding area. Many people from various different nationalities as well as communities live and work in this general area in the southern region of Lincolnshire. And it may be that someone from within these communities has information that will help bring the guilty party to justice and provide answers to Alan's family as to why the murder happened. It may be that some of these people have since returned to their home countries. Let's talk a little bit about the victim in this case, Alan Wood. He was a 50-year-old man at the time of his death, and he was known to his family and friends as a laid-back, easygoing and gentle man who worked hard and enjoyed simple things in life. Alan was born in Gillingham. He was the eldest of 3 children of Jim and Maureen Wood, and he grew up in Garby, Lincolnshire, so he was from the surrounding vicinity from what I've gathered. Alan was renting a small bungalow manor house in Lound. It's this little house. You will not be able to find it on the Google map right now because ever since his murder, the house has been demolished. We will look at the house and the general map locations. I was able to track that house where it's actually situated because, if you go on the Google Earth application and you can go back in time and see the satellite images from 2009 and from 2010, and you can see the house is still there. But ever since, the Google satellite images have updated, ever since 2016, the house is no longer there, and I kind of understand why it has been demolished. It was the scene of one of the most gruesome murders in, UK's history in recent times, so probably it would not get rented out easily, and no one wants to remember what has happened in that house. Alan's social life centered around visiting the Willoughby Arms pub in nearby Little Bytham, a small town of only approximately 400 people, where he could often be found in this pub sitting next to the bar with a pint of beer and a packet of peanuts. He liked to read newspapers there, and he was chatting with his friends from the local vicinity. He was a very liked man in the surrounding areas. He seemed to be a very friendly man who got along with everyone. It didn't seem like he had any enemies. He loved photography and took wedding pictures for some of his friends, although he preferred the old-fashioned cameras to the latest digital technology. His other passion was motorbikes, his favorite motorbike being his black Triumph Speed Triple, which he had for several years. Alan also had an E-Type Jaguar. Now, the only models of this particular car I found online go for thousands of dollars these days. I think the average price in the last 5 years of any E-Type Jaguar was $100,000. Now, various sources, when I was researching this case, stated that this E-Type Jaguar was not valuable. I believe one of his family members or his co-workers, I cannot really recall who said it, but someone estimated the value of his E-Type Jaguar at 500 pounds. Now, this is a big issue for me in this case, the uncertainty with his particular car, because I think this car could potentially play a big role to why he was murdered. And we're gonna look at some numbers soon, and maybe some of my audience members are better car experts than me. I'm definitely not into cars, so maybe someone will correct me in the comment section. You're always welcome to do that. Alan was working at a Sainsbury's grocery store in the nearby Bourne since 2006. Now, the town of Bourne is only 2 miles away from his home in Lound. He was extremely well liked at his work. He enjoyed working the night shift. He also ran a small gardening business during the summers called Gardens TLC. There are some conflicting reports. I think Sainsbury's was only a part-time gig for Alan because he would mainly focus on his gardening business, but it was a seasonal business that could not generate any profits during the winter, colder month, so he had to have some sort of an income. So he was working in Sainsbury's, he was doing the night shifts, his co-workers and colleagues really liked him, they participated in generating the reward money, and I think just his colleagues alone have generated 40,000 British pounds for, any information leading to, the arrest of the culprits in this case. Now, if you're not aware, British pounds are even more expensive than the US dollars, so that's around like $50,000, and that's just a small little community of co-workers. They chipped in a lot of money, so this just tells me that Alan Wood was a very liked person in his work and generally in his life. Alan used to be married to a woman named Joanne Wood for over a decade. Some sources stated it was 17 years, other sources stated 11 years. However, they had divorced in 2003, 6 years prior to Alan getting murdered. They both remained on good terms. Alan's mother, Maureen, still lives in Stamford. She is in her 80s, along with her sister Janice, and his other sister, Sylvia, now lives in France. Alan had no criminal history or had no known enemies. Nothing has been uncovered regarding his potential, shady debts that could have led to the brutal murder, or any contact with any shady individuals. He seemed just like a happy, simple British man living in the, rural parts of Lincolnshire County before he was murdered. It is not clear how many people carried out this attack, but one of the offenders did injure themselves during this attack, and they left blood at the scene. Forensic analysis has given detectives a full male DNA profile. The obtained DNA profile has been run through the National DNA Database in the UK, which has not provided a match. Similar database searches have been done around the world, and to this date, there have been no matches made. So if there is a match, then police could actually arrest the culprit or culprits. From what I'm gathering, only one male DNA profile has been established. Law enforcement is heavily suggesting that this was not a one-man job, that more people were involved, at least one more person, and I will provide you some evidence shortly why I also believe that this is definitely a two-man operation at this point, but only one male DNA profile is established. Once again, it has been ran through the system and it has not came up with a match, probably meaning that the culprit, or let's put it this way, the culprit has not had his DNA collected by any government that has already, checked their systems. On top of the DNA sample, detectives also found footprints left at the scene that matched a Converse sneaker, with the help of Converse in the United States, the company, the print type of that footprint has been narrowed down to a particular sole used in Converse shoes, which are available in two styles and was largely sold in Europe and North America at the time. I've seen some sources stating that it was only one possible type. It was some sort of a red Converse sneaker, but Lincolnshire police on their website are showing two different types of shoes. So I'm going with the information that's on Lincolnshire police. And these are two, I would say one of those sneakers kind of looks regular, but this other one is kind of purplish. And if you glance at the YouTube channel, I'm certainly showing these sneakers right now as I speak. One of those shoes definitely look very distinctive. The other one looks like a very common black shoe. Once again, it's pretty interesting how only one set of footprints was found. So perhaps this indicates that only one man was actively inside of the house and the other man was probably outside of the house. And it makes sense because the other man could have been going to different ATMs and checking if Alan's provided PIN number as he's being tortured is correct. That's probably a smart tactic that the culprits, or if it was two culprits, then it's probably the smartest tactic they could come up with. Would anyone really commit a home invasion, get PIN codes, and then leave the victim there as if he's not gonna call the cops and his bank immediately? So it's assumed that this is the tactic used in this crime for sure. It was established during the early stages of the investigation that Alan's bank cards had been used in Bourne, the town that's only 2 miles away, and Stamford, another town that's fairly nearby, over a couple of days after Alan's murder at ATM cash points. Now, a small amount of cash was withdrawn from his account. Police has not revealed how much money has been withdrawn, but it's believed that the culprits or culprit expected to gain more money from this crime. CCTV cameras are usually placed around these ATMs, and sure enough, one of the culprits has been captured on CCTV footage. The suspect seen on CCTV footage appears to be between 5'9" and 5'11" in height. This person is dressed in a smart, casual manner and appears to be wearing a distinctive striped scarf. The person has an unusual walk, and experts have analyzed this CCTV footage and they came to the conclusion that this suspect is limping due to his right leg being slightly longer than his left leg. The offender, or I should say the suspect, may also have been injured after the crime. As you can remember, blood was found at the scene. That injury could have been to his hand. A witness at one of the ATMs has also helped the law enforcement to create a sketch of the suspect. This sighting was made at the same exact grocery store that Alan worked in. This is a big grocery store, and Sainsbury's, and there is an ATM machine in that store. Now, the person actually went, the suspect went to that ATM and tried to extract cash from that ATM machine. Someone actually witnessed them. We do not have CCTV footage from that particular ATM cash out attempt. The only CCTV footage that has been released to the public is from the city of Stamford, and I've collected all of the CCTV videos that have been released, and we're gonna be reviewing them shortly. Maybe you guys can also have some insights after looking at the CCTV. Alan's colleagues, as well as Crime Stoppers, have put up a reward of $50,000 British pounds. Once again, colleagues chipped in 40,000 and Crime Stoppers also chipped in 10,000, making the total into 50,000 for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of Allen's killers. It is one of the largest rewards offered at this time in a UK murder investigation. The timeline in this case begins at some time before the murder. This is just a detail that I think is relevant to this case. So, sometime before the murder, Allen is known to take his E-Type Jaguar to a car wash. A man working at a certain car wash that Allen used to take his E-Type Jaguar to, a Polish man. I think we're gonna jump to him a little bit later on. I don't have a lot of information about that guy. I think in 2014, law enforcement said that they want to speak to that Polish man who works at that car wash. Now, that E-Type Jaguar apparently is not valuable according to sources close to the victim, but once again, I found conflicting reports online. E-Type Jaguars go for a lot of money these days. Once again, this was 2009, so, maybe the value has increased. I'm sure it has skyrocketed ever since, but probably was an expensive car even back then. On October 21st, 2009, which was a Wednesday, Allen did some shopping in Morrison's in Stamford. This is confirmed by CCTV footage. On the same day at 6:30 p.m., Allen is last seen at the Willoughby Arms pub. He was leaving at 6:30 p.m. and that was the last time anyone had seen him alive. The following day, on October 22nd, which was Thursday, it is believed that Allen has been killed on this day. So he was killed the following day after he was last seen. We have CCTV footage, stills, that has been released to us, and the timestamp on those are 8:58 p.m. of the same day of 22nd of October that we're referring to right now, and we can see that the suspect is captured on CCTV at the ATM in Stamford. Probably likely that at this point Allen is already killed. 2 days later, on October 24th, which was a Saturday, Allen Wood was found brutally murdered in his home. Before we jump into other details and CCTV footage and the various interesting things that I've, just looked at over the last couple of days, I would like to kind of summarize what we know about this case, because there has been a lot of details. Maybe this is gonna paint a better, clearer picture. So what we know is that Allen Wood was a 50-year-old man. He was living alone in a small village called Lound. He lived in a rented manor house. He worked at a Sainsbury's grocery store and had a small gardening business. I don't think he had kids. I didn't find any information about that, so I assume he didn't have any kids and he was living alone at this house at the time of his murder. Allen liked motorbikes as well as cars. He had the Triumph Speed triple bike and an E-Type Jaguar. Allen was well liked and didn't have any enemies. He didn't have a criminal record or any shady debts either. He is not considered rich. It's unknown why the killers or killer targeted him. It is believed that Allen had been relaxing at home, likely reading in bed on Thursday evening, which was October 22nd, when he suddenly got up and went to the front door. Either someone had knocked or Allen was drawn to the door by sounds of a disturbance in his yard. As soon as Allen opened the door, he was overpowered by one or two men who dragged him to the living room. The intruder or intruders then used duct tape to restrain their victim before beginning extreme levels of violence and torture. It is possible that Allen was tortured over a period of time, with the killer leaving to try if the pin worked or not, and returning to finish the job or continue the torture if the pin was wrong. It is not known why the killer or killers tried to decapitate him. It's likely due to bloodlust, but due to an unfit weapon, the process would have taken too long. Apparently, the knife wasn't made for such things. Bank cards were the only thing missing from the house. From the crime scene, the investigators recovered a footprint made by a Converse sneaker available in two styles, and the blood sample used to generate a full male DNA profile. It appears that when the killer had attacked Alan, they had accidentally cut themselves, that or Alan had caused injury to them by fighting back. Investigators ran the DNA profile through the National DNA Database as well as other countries' DNA databases, but no match was found. There was a 65-hour window from when Alan was last seen alive to his body being discovered, 65-hour window. Investigators also found pieces of a bus ticket stuck to the duct tape used to bind Alan's hands. The ticket was from a local transport firm called Delane that runs buses in the Bourne area. Based on CCTV footage and interviews of drivers and passengers, the investigators concluded that the passenger who used the bus ticket had likely been Alan's killer, not Alan himself. What's happening here is that, the duct tape actually had a bus ticket fragments attached to it. I have no idea how they managed to, mess up this bad. They left so much DNA evidence in this case. It's crazy. That ticket was traced back to a local bus company that kind of operates in the general area. And it's likely that Alan was not the owner of that ticket because Alan never rode the bus. He had a bike and a car. So this only leaves us with one possible solution, that the killer or killers were the owners of that bus ticket, meaning that they got to the kill site to Alan's home via the bus. The killer or killers had obtained the PIN code information from Alan and had withdrawn a small amount of money from the adjacent towns on Thursday, the same day of the crime, and in the 2 days following the murder. A total of 11 attempts were made, but only 2 were successful in the nearby Bourne and Stamford. I'm not really sure how to explain the fact that only 2 attempts out of a total of 11 attempts have been successful to withdraw money from the ATM. As mentioned previously, a witness came forward saying that she had seen 2 men using an ATM in Alan's workplace at Sainsbury's at about 9:30 p.m. on Thursday. So this is the same day when he was killed. One of the men was described as 5'9" to 5'11", with a medium to slim build, wearing smart casual clothes and distinctive striped scarf and Converse sneakers. So this description actually came from that Sainsbury's ATM sighting. It's interesting to see that the other sighting, well, the CCTV stills that we have, they're actually from Stanford at approximately 9 p.m. So it means that the culprit or culprits, well, there were 2 of them clearly now because the witness saw 2 men in the ATM at Sainsbury's. But, the interesting thing here is that we can see CCTV footage from Stanford at 9 p.m. and then at 9:30 p.m. we see CCTV footage at Bourne. So it means that the culprit went first to Stanford, then they went to Bourne, and they tried to cash out money. Experts came to the conclusion that the man had an unusual walk due to his right leg being slightly longer than his left. In addition, this person was a smoker and seemed knowledgeable of the area's CCTV systems, as he took precautions to avoid recognition. He's seen wearing a hoodie in one CCTV footage that we'll review, and in the other one his face is well hidden under that scarf as well. So this leaves us with this killer or killer's profile. It's likely that there are 2 or more men involved in this crime. They arrived to Alan's home via the bus. Alan seems to have been targeted by the killer or killers because it's very hard to imagine how they have just randomly stumbled upon him in Lound, which is not really in a good place to commit such crimes, to be honest, because it's kind of out of place, not really close to a major roadway. They did not steal a lot of money from him. They were probably expecting Alan to have more money in his bank account. Alan was killed in a savage way. The killers are able to kill in such a savage way. They left a lot of evidence at the scene, but at the same time they managed to escape the area without attracting too much attention to themselves, and they managed to somehow not draw the attention of the neighbors. When we will look at the map, the neighbors' homes are really close to Alan's, so the fact that the killers didn't attract any attention to themselves is also an interesting fact. The suspect wore Converse sneakers, had a limp, had a Caucasian Eastern European look according to the sketch, and also was a smoker. Their DNA is not on any of the DNA databases so far. Detectives suspect that the killer or killers were visiting the United Kingdom in 2009 and are no longer in the United Kingdom. We're currently on the map. We are looking at the interesting points in this case. This is the town of Peterborough. It is the largest town, well, I would say city in the local area, and has the largest concentration of people. I'm zooming into Stamford. This is a little bit of a smaller town, but it's closer to Lound than Peterborough is to Lound, essentially. As we know from the timeline, Morrison's store is right here, and Alan Wood has been to Morrison's one day prior to his murder, and then from Morrison's he actually drove to Willoughby Arms. This is that pub that we've already talked about. So this is a pub that Alan frequented on a fairly regular basis from what I've gathered, and he was well liked. So he left the bar at around 6:30 p.m. On the evening on that day, and then he went back to Lound. Now, he was murdered in Lound. It's estimated that he was murdered in Lound probably on October 22nd, which is a Thursday. He was last seen on 21st back in that pub on Wednesday on the 21st. Close to Lound, close to the location where Alan lived, is the town of Bourne, and this is the Sainsbury's grocery store where he worked at. And once again, let's remember that on the day of his killing, well, the likely date of his killing, the 22nd of October, two people were in the ATM and they were cashing out the money, and I think they were successful because the investigation and the information that the law enforcement released to us, they told us that the only two successful cash out attempts happened in Stamford, in that other town that we've looked at, as well as in Bourne. So I would assume it was in Sainsbury's. This is it for the map details. I want to address the fact and get your attention to the location of the house. I spent a little bit of time trying to locate the house and I wasn't successful, and then I realized that the house has been demolished ever since. So this is the plot of land right here where the house was present, and as you can see, homes are fairly close by from either direction, from the northern direction and from the southern direction. We can see there are homes here, and I want to jump to the Google Earth application previously mentioned before. We're now looking at 2010. This is basically satellite footage from 2010. And from 2010, we can see that Alan's house is present here. But once we jump to the street view, and let me just grab the street view real quickly as well, so I could illustrate this a little bit better. Once we're gonna jump to it, we will see that the house is no longer present. Give me a second. Oof, this street view. It's a little bit harder to operate. I'm actually gonna jump back to the web version because it's I think works a little faster. So let me just quickly jump to it, and we can take a look at the surrounding area. As you can see, this is where the house was at. Now it's being kind of gated off. I don't think anyone wants to build a house here, but we can see that this is a house very close by. This is an area, a house. Seems like people are living here. From the windows we can see objects, so people live definitely in here. And from the other side of Alan's house we see another house. This house is a two-story building, also seems inhabited, and there's homes here in the general area. Once again, this looks like a very tight-knit community, so if someone who was not who didn't live here was present, I would think they would be noticed by the inhabitants of Lound. But it's interesting because the culprit or culprits managed to not attract any attentions to themselves. They are not professional by any means because they left a lot of DNA evidence, but at the same time didn't attract a lot of attention. So I think it's just luck. I feel like they just got lucky. This is another picture to illustrate where Lound is. As you can see, it's just north from London. It's basically just a rural community. This is the distance that you would have to take to get from Peterborough to Lound, because I also suspect that maybe the culprit or culprits may have had connection to Peterborough, and we're gonna get into it, into some statistics just in a little bit. As we can see, guys, it would take around 30 minutes by a car because it's 17 miles away from Peterborough. This is another map illustrating that that Lound is actually in the southern part of Lincolnshire. We have some images of Alan Wood. Once again, Alan Wood seemed like a very liked individual in his community. I've seen an interview with his sister where she was pleading for more information, and it really does seem like this hit the family hard. This really did hit the family hard. We're seeing this house, as we can see, once again, just illustrating again that this house, the interesting fact for me was that it's definitely surrounded by other homes in the vicinity, at least a few homes. And yeah, this community seems like an odd character. The one that we will look at in the CCTV would definitely stand out in this community. So I do think it's pretty interesting how they managed to not attract attention to themselves. This is Alan's house, the demolished house right here. This is the house. As you can see, it's actually probably, I was thinking about this house looks like it's probably one of the best homes if you're gonna map out a home invasion, just from the fact that it looks to me like it's an in and out kind of a house. We have a door, but remember, guys, it's been noted in the timeline that we've talked about, the front door and the back door were left open, which is another interesting factor in this case, because we have to think about this is a community of people who have been strolling back and forth through, passing Alan's house, and Alan's house is reportedly, the door is wide open, which and it's been at least a couple of days before someone noticed, and actually only his colleague from work noticed that Alan is, he's not coming to work. Maybe something's wrong with him. He doesn't pick up my phone calls. I'm gonna go investigate. So he's the one, you know what I mean? The coworker is the one to make the discovery. These neighbors actually spent 2 days without even noticing that the front door is wide open, or they didn't care at all. So I guess this kind of, is also something we can think about. Once again, there's a back door. I don't have an image of the back door, but it is interesting for me because the back door and the front door is wide open. I'm not really sure if this is a big, detail in this case, but I would probably imagine that such an operation would probably you would only need to use the front door to get in and out, but the back door was also opened in this case. We have another image. This is an image from this is an actual crime scene image. The previous image that we were looking at, is from an old Google Street View. So this Google Street View is from, I think, 2000, early, like probably 2010 or something like that, or 2008. This is, I'm not really sure. Maybe this is even his car, Alan's car, E-Type Jaguar. Now, from the images that I've looked at, the Jaguar, yeah, this could be the E-Type Jaguar. I think the rear end of the E-Type Jaguar is a little bit different than the one we can see right here, but maybe this is Alan's car. I'm not really sure. This is where things get interesting. This is a crime scene picture, and as we can see, this is this outline right here is the duct tape. As you can see, this is the duct tape, and stuck to the duct tape right here, this particular item, and we can see a little bit of it here, this particular item is a fragment of a bus ticket. I really don't know how they left such an important clue for law enforcement. This was not crime staging. I do not believe that this was crime staging. It doesn't look to me like crime staging. This looks to me like very forensically unaware individual who commits this thing, you know, being they left the doors wide open as well. Let's remember. So these people don't seem to me like masterminds, and you know, they left so much clues. It's crazy to think that this case has not been solved yet. We're looking at the Converse shoes now. You know, I think the sole, right? One of the soles, well, both of these soles of these two pairs of shoes look identical, as you can see. And we know that either one of these two Converse models were worn by one of the culprits. Once again, this shoe to me, the shoe that we are looking at the bottom, it looks to me like it's very distinctive. I would probably even notice someone wearing that, but it could have been this black shoe as well, and this black shoe is something I would probably not notice. We're looking at a still of one of the suspects in this case. This is in Stanford. As we can see that the suspect is wearing some sort of jeans, wearing dark shoes, wearing a black jacket, a gray hat, and also is wearing a striped scarf. Definitely looks like this man is aware of where the CCTV cameras are placed, because he's looking straight into the direction of the CCTV camera, and I believe only his eyes are really present, you know, are really opened. We can see that his face is covered with the striped scarf, indicating that he is aware of the locations of the CCTV cameras, and they have at least done some sort of preparation before extracting the cash from the ATM machine. We have another still where the suspect is kind of looking sideways a little bit. I don't think this gives us any additional information. Once again, this is the same night where the suspect is seen walking, and this is actually, I believe, where when we will look at the video, because we're just looking at stills and just, you know, discussing the stills. I think when we look at this particular part of the footage where this man is walking in this particular alley, I think we can actually even notice a slight limp in this case. Kind of is reminiscent of that Missy Beavers case. Remember, guys, in that case, the suspect had the limp as well. So these are interesting little details for us to look at. Okay, I'm gonna play the first CCTV footage. One thing I want to note for you guys to pay attention, as you can see here in the bottom right corner, we have a timestamp, and it says October 22nd, the same likely day when Alan is murdered, but this is 8:58 p.m., almost 9 p.m. I would assume that by this time, Alan is already killed, and this is in Stanford. Let's look at it. It's a pretty short video, it's only 8 seconds. I've put it on loop it's looping as we speak. Yeah, this man seems to me like he is definitely aware of where in Stamford, close to the ATM machine, CCTV cameras are placed. We have another CCTV footage. It said that it's also in Stamford, but this is a little bit of a confusion here, because if we would take a quick look at the timestamp in the bottom right corner, it will say that it's 21:40 p.m. 21:40 p.m. So I'm not really sure if this can be Stamford, because let's remember that by 21:30 p.m. This person has been spotted in Bourne in Sainsbury's. So maybe this is from Sainsbury's. Once again, I just found this on YouTube, and on YouTube it said Stamford as well. But I have my doubts that this is actually from Stamford. But we definitely know it's on the same night, because the timestamp is indicating that it's the 22nd of October. Let's look at the footage. This is the footage where the man is walking in the alley, and I think we can see a slight limp. I mean, let me know, guys, what you think. Do you see a slight limp? Maybe the footage is very grainy for everyone who's listening to this on the podcast apps. The footage is quite grainy, and it's also quite dark. To me, seems like the right leg is you see how to me this doesn't look natural. This right here, to me this particular thing doesn't look natural, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section. So yeah, just a man walking. I'm not really sure. He probably has extracted money from the ATM at this point. And finally, we have a CCTV footage from, I think, a later time, because this footage is clearly in the day. Now we have a timestamp in the top left corner of the screen, but I cannot make out which date it is. So I'm just gonna play the entirety of it. It's a little bit of a longer CCTV footage. As we can see a man. We can see that this is probably another day. He's no longer wearing the scarf. Let's pay attention. He's no longer wearing the scarf, but I think he has a hoodie on. And we're now gonna jump to another angle. Well, okay, in this particular timestamp, we don't have the angle. Oh, sorry, we don't have the striped scarf. What am I saying? The man is no longer wearing the striped scarf. He's wearing a cap. And I would also say pay attention to his legs formation right here, to his left legs formation. It's slightly bent, and he is only wearing a cap as well. Let me get back to it. So as we can see, he's just extracting some money from the ATM. This is apparently also in Stamford. I actually spent some time in Stamford on the Google Street View, and I wasn't able to locate this particular area. It says bank very clearly, but when I typed in bank, I wasn't able to locate this alley. So once again, I can't really verify if this is actually Stamford or not. But I do believe it's Stamford, because Stamford has very similar pavement. So I was just unfortunately unable to locate this area. Yeah, so the man is seen extracting some money, and maybe this is one of those attempts that has been unsuccessful to extract money, but the man does seem to spend quite a bit of time. Also, I'm not really sure if I see... No, I think I just saw something. I don't see the man holding a bag or anything like that. I think he extracted the money, if he was successful, and put the money in his pocket. And now we're gonna see the same exact bank, but the same exact ATM, I'm sorry, but this is from a different day, and we can see that the limp here is present in the left leg, so we know this is the exact same man who's extracting the money, and we can see that he has a hood on this time. Last time around, he only had this cap, now he has the hood on. It's also crazy to think that these people right here, surrounding people, are walking past a a cruel killer who had attempted potentially to decapitate someone. This person in the red jacket, this person standing right near, this old lady looking around, they have no idea. This man had literally attempted a decapitation days prior to, what, this time. So it's crazy. You never know who you're standing around, guys. It's very important to remember that anybody can be a crazy person potentially. You never know who you're living with, who you're working with. Everyone's a crazy person. We're looking at the sketch of the man, and when I look at this sketch, what I see is definitely not a native Englishman. This is definitely someone from my neck of the woods. As you may know, guys, I am from Lithuania, and this man could very well be Lithuanian, and I will present some facts shortly about that. Also, this kind of gave me a little bit of a maybe Romanian look, maybe also like that, Eastern Southern European vibe as well. But this could easily be a Polish man, this could easily be a Hungarian man, a Slovakian man, Lithuanian man, Latvian man. So I'm just looking at this sketch and I'm seeing a person from around my neck of the woods. A lot of people, men, look like this, you know what I mean? They have that really like kind of, an interesting face. I don't want to say too much. We are now on the Delane website. As you can recall, guys, the Delane is the business that operates buses, and their bus ticket was found attached to the duct tape. It's hard to even imagine how the killer or killers managed to scrub that bad. And I was on their website and I found some interesting things. This is how their buses usually look like. They have, I think most of their buses are these 2-story buses, the stereotypical English 2-story bus. I found a map of their route from Peterborough to Bourne, and I think they also go somewhere else after Bourne. Now, this was a good find for us because I have a hint that these people, whoever committed, could have committed this crime, could have connection to Peterborough. And this is even, my conviction in this is even strengthened now because of that ticket. Now, we know the ticket belongs to one of the culprits. So this bus route starts at Peterborough, and the interesting point for us is actually, as you can see, this is Bourne, and I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. It's gonna start making a lot more sense in a little bit. See, these 2 bus stops, because these little points here, these little bubbles on the route are actually bus stops. So my estimation, if the culprits actually went from Peterborough to commit this crime in Lound, they would have had to taken either this stop, get out at this stop right here, or they would have had to gotten out on this stop right here. And why I say this is because these are the easiest points to actually get to Lound. And I have a Google Maps estimate. So if the culprits actually got out in the town of Bourne and walked on foot to Lound, it would have taken them an hour and 8 minutes if they went on the road, because you can see it's 3.4 miles away. Now, if they had taken the bus stop prior to arriving to Bourne at Fen Lane, it would have taken them also around an hour and 10 minutes, virtually the same, 3.5 miles. So it seems that when the ticket was used, the culprits either got out at Fen Lane, or they got out just after coming to Bourne. So it's, assumed that, but once again, there has been reports that police are actually investigating some cars that could have been potentially involved in this case. So this is just my quick, take. Definitely not professional investigation, just my quick Google search results, yeah? We're looking at the E-Type Jaguar. This is not the one that belonged to Alan, But these are just a couple of models. The E-Type Jaguar was produced in the 60s and in the 70s, and these are just some of the models, and it does look like a really expensive vintage car. This is the E-Type Jaguar Wikipedia description. As we can see that it was in production from the year of 61 to the year of 74, from 61 to 74, so 13 years. It had a few different types, I think maybe 3 types or 2 different types. And the interesting thing for me is that I pulled up this website and I took a screenshot of the Jaguar E-Type sales. As we can see, these are the sales for all of the models, basically, the ones that span from 61 to 75. And we can see that in the last 5 years, from today, 41 of them have been sold, and the average price of them selling is $100,000. And the lowest sale, the possible cheapest sale, was $12,000. This one probably didn't even have an engine or anything like that. And I think the E-Type that Alan was driving had an engine. You can see the top sale was $1.7 million. Now, I am aware that, because of inflation and just in general, vintage cars probably explode in value the older they are. So I would probably say that we can definitely estimate that these values were not as high. The car's value, I'm sorry, the E-Type value was not as high as it is right now. But I will still say that it's probably a pretty expensive car, even for back in the day. I have no idea how much it costed, but I find it very hard to believe that, some of the close persons to Alan estimated the value of that E-Type at 500 pounds, which I really don't see how that car goes from 500 pounds to costing up to $100,000 in 13 years. I just don't really see that. This is the bike that Alan owned. I believe this might be the bike because it was the black version of Triumph. And this is the picture for a bike from 2006. It's probably, I'm not really sure how much it costs though. And this is where things get interesting, because if you will go to Lincolnshire Police website and you will actually, find Alan's case information on there, the information has been translated in many different Eastern and Central European languages. We have Albanian, Croatian, Czech, Hungarian, Latvian, Lithuanian, Polish, Russian, Slovakian, and Ukrainian. They actually have a Lithuanian version of it, and actually there's a translation. I believe a Lincolnshire police officer, a female who is a Lithuanian national. I can clearly tell she's from Lithuania, and she actually described Alan's case in Lithuanian, and that had more views. That description in Lithuanian had more views than any other country's description of that case, I believe. Definitely the most popular description. And also, if we're gonna be thinking about Peterborough, that town, Peterborough is known for a lot of Lithuanian activity. Peterborough is, I don't know if they call it Little Lithuania or not, but even before researching this case, I knew that there's a heavy, there's a lot of Lithuanian nationals living in Peterborough. We have some statistics. This is for Bourne, Lincolnshire. I pulled up some statistics. Maybe they are interesting to us. We can see that, the most notable thing about Bourne, Lithuania, that it is still focused mainly on agriculture and food preparation for supermarkets. Now, this definitely indicates to me non-UK employment, like agriculture. This just screams like Eastern European. Definitely a lot of Lithuanian nationals do like these low-level jobs when they move to the United Kingdom. But this is more interesting for us because now we're looking at the statistics for Peterborough. And as you can see, Peterborough's population has been growing fairly rapidly from the year of 2001 to 2011. So remember that Alan Woods is killed in 2009. So Alan Woods was killed during the high time migration into Peterborough. And it's also noted here that, I'm not really sure at which point this was 2011 census showed that a total of 24,166 migrants moved to Peterborough between 2001 and 2011. 14,000 residents of the city were people born in Central and Eastern Europe. Recent migration had resulted in increased translation costs and a change in the nature of crime in the county. With an increase in drink driving offenses, this is classic Lithuania, knife crime, and an international dimension added to activities such as running cannabis factories and human trafficking. The number of foreign nationals arrested in the north of the county rose from 894 in 2003 to 2,435 in 2006, like a clear indication that a lot of Eastern European people are moving into the area, and they are, stats don't lie. You know what I mean? We can be really nice about it, but stats don't lie. And stats show that things are not going super great when they move in, usually. And this is a case where I have a little bit of personal experience. Back in 2014, I believe from August 2014 and September 2014, I have worked in Shropshire in the town of Telford. Well, I lived in Telford. I worked in factories outside of Telford. I was doing some, logistic stuff, basically like lifting crates or whatever. And I remember that I was definitely living, and this was 2014, so 5 years after, 5 years after Alan was murdered, and obviously in a different part of England. But I do remember that most of the people that I was working with, I didn't like those people, you know what I mean? I would not hang out with them because they were bad news. They would go there from Lithuania because they're broke. I was 18 back then, so I was also broke. It was really good for me. I'm backtracking. I'm definitely diverting here a little bit. I was working, I believe I was doing like 12-hour night shifts 6 times per week for £5 per hour. So that's like, thinking back, that's kind of, close to slave labor right there. But it was good for me because I was 18 and, I'm not rich. And back then I didn't have a lot of money. So back then, I guess it was a pretty good deal for an 18-year-old kid right after high school. You know what I mean? I made some money, and I was only there for a couple of months because it got too hard for me. I had to go back. It was crazy. Who can live like that for a prolonged period of time, right? But I remember people there were not the best. People were coming from like these more rural areas of Lithuania, from these smaller towns. They obviously don't have any money, but they're wild individuals. You know what I mean? The first paycheck they get super drunk, they get into a car, and boom, that's a car accident. You know what I mean? Just waiting to happen. And yeah, I've never really ran across to people who would definitely commit crimes like this, but I could definitely see how, some of them could easily turn to do those crimes as well. It's, you miss one paycheck, you miss one payday, maybe you have alimony payments back home, you have 3 kids with some chick or whatever, you know what I mean? You need to pay the money, and then they're taking away your like 2003 BMW that you have spent modifying the last 10 years. You know what I mean? You spent like 20,000 on that thing, old ass BMW, that stinky ass BMW. You know what I mean? They're trying to take that car away from you because you haven't paid alimony for your 3 stupid kids. You know what I mean? That's how I can see how you go and you're like, okay, I need money. I need to save that BMW. So that's just my, little background. I would say still the majority people are went to England because they wanted to escape poverty in Lithuania. And these are just some things that I found online. One of the people close to this case, close to Alan, actually said that the Jaguar, the same E-Type, was his pride joy, and it looked fabulous. So it was in good shape. I assume it was in good shape, but was only probably worth about 500 pounds. How is a Jaguar that looks fabulous is worth around 500 pounds? Doesn't add up to me at all. Also, this person says that my gut feeling is that they thought he had money, or that they thought he had the keys to the store, because there was an allegation that apparently Alan looked very similar to the store's manager, and maybe they tried to get into the store or something like that. Yeah, we have a few things here as well that some people speculated that suggested that perhaps Alan had met the wrong people while doing some gardening work in a prison years before, or he was a casual user of sex workers and somehow being targeted because of that. Neither of these theories have, however, are supported by evidence. Alan's family and friends are certain they would have known if he had any enemies or felt his life was threatened. Now, this was interesting because I was reading this article and it stated that over the years, 4 people have been arrested in relation to Alan's murder, but each has been released without charges. It is believed that there were at least 2 people present at Alan's house that they likely one going to the ATMs with a bank card once they had found them whilst in mobile phone contact with the other, torturing Alan to get correct PIN numbers. The person had local knowledge. They either live or have lived in the area or had connections with it otherwise. Also, it says that it does not seem plausible that the killers just happened to his house one day and decided to rob him. More likely, they knew Alan, not necessarily personally, but they may have been following him to know where he lived and watched his bungalow before the attack. And we just have another. This is just a snippet I took from one of the press releases by law enforcement, and they said that Alan Wood was not likely to have been the owner of the ticket, the bus ticket. There is no evidence he was a bus user, and staff and regular users do not seem to know him, so we suspect that the killer or killers used that bus ticket. Alright, and this is the last thing I want to talk about. I found an article from 2014, and it says basically that new leads in investigation into murder of Alan Wood in 2009. Detectives investigating the brutal murder of Alan Wood in October of 2009 have appealed for information to help find a man called Pavel, Rijits. Alan Wood was bound, tortured, and mutilated at his home in the tiny rural hamlet of Lound, near Bourne in Lincolnshire, in October 2009. Police know that his bank cards were stolen and used in Bourne and nearby Stamford over the following couple of days. Police have not yet discovered a motive, as despite the use of what officers described as an extraordinary level of violence, only a few £100 was taken. Deputy Stuart Morrison, who is leading the investigation, said officers are trying to trace a man named Pavel W. Let's call him Pavel W, pronounced Pavel Wursch, who may be able to help with the inquiry. And this is their quote: "We would very much like to trace a man by the name of Pavel W, aged in his late 20s to early 30s, who we think may have been living and working at a car wash or a car washes in the Peterborough and Stamford area in the mid to late period of 2009. If anyone knows Pavel or knew him at the time, please contact us as soon as possible. And if Pavel himself sees this appeal, we would very much like to hear from him." This immediately leads me to thinking that they probably contacted Poland, and Polish authorities probably cannot locate this man Pavel. So this Pavel we have his second name. If his second name is correct, then authorities should be able to locate this man. I mean, how hard is it to locate a man? Maybe you could go to the car wash and maybe look at some employment information. Maybe he was employed illegally. Maybe he had provided an illegal name. Maybe this is what's happening here. Maybe this was a case of illegal employment. But now what this got me thinking is that that car, the E-Type Jaguar, is probably not that cheap. It's probably not 500 pounds, as we already saw some statistics about it. Maybe Pavel somehow saw that car, or his people that he was close to saw that car, and maybe they assumed that Alan was rich or had a lot of money in the bank because he was driving a old vintage car. And maybe they traced him back to his home one day. And maybe this is why his home was invaded. Maybe the car, the E-Type Jaguar, is actually the reason for this brutal murder. But at this point, I'm gonna sign out. I don't have anything else to add about this case. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on another episode. Stay safe, please.